Morning, everyone. My name is Joel Francis. I'm the Assistant Chief Officer in the Ministry of Community Affairs, Youth and Sports. And on behalf of the Chief Officer and the Minister, we'd like to welcome everyone to this press conference today to announce the rollout of the Child Abuse Prevention Policy for National Sports Associations. We'd like to recognize also the members of the sports associations present, President Derek Haynes, President Anne-Marie Bird of Boxing, and Ms. Lucille Seymour of Netball. The head table to my right is Ms. Claire Allen of the Attorney General's Office, Minister Bodden to my immediate left, Director Mrs. Felicia Robinson, and on the far left, Chief Officer Ms. Doreen Whittaker. I'd now like to call on the Honourable Minister for his remarks.
Thank you, Joel, and pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Thank you all for coming. This is a really good turnout. In all my press briefings, I don't think I've had a room this full, so it speaks to the importance of this occasion. As Minister for Community Affairs, Youth and Sports, I've called this press conference today to present the Ministry's recently approved Child Abuse Prevention Policy for National Sports Associations. A lot of time and care was taken in preparing this policy, most notably by senior staff of the Department of Children and Family Services, assisted by the Solicitor General's Office. The policy was finalized following consultation with all relevant stakeholders, including representatives of national sports associations. The policy is mandated by the provisions of the Children Law 2012 revision, which calls for a strategic approach to safeguarding children. This law requires mandatory reporting of child abuse by officials of sports clubs and associations affiliated to the Cayman Islands National Sports Association to do all that is possible to protect their young athletes. Along with requiring background checks for staff, volunteers, and visiting sports officials, the policy sets a standard for ensuring that reasonable steps are taken to safeguard the physical and emotional well-being of young persons while in a club or association's care. Shielding our children from harm and the risk of abuse is both a statutory obligation and one for which all civic-minded citizens are jointly accountable. We all share a profound duty of care to act responsibly and with urgency in protecting our children from harm. As Minister for Community Affairs, Youth and Sports, I look forward to working constructively with the National Sports Association and all its member clubs to carry out this delicate and necessary duty. I also look forward to your best efforts and your assistance in spreading the word that safeguarding children is one of our community's highest priorities. You know, I'm minister now with responsibility for youth and sports and community affairs, and I never dreamt when I was a teenager that we would have the need for such a policy. Playing sports as a youngster, as I did all my life, we grew up around well-meaning people and people who looked after us like our parents when they weren't available. But we've come to the development of these islands, to the point of development of these islands where such a policy is necessary. And as minister, I certainly didn't hesitate when we've started to see the rut, as it were, set in. And I want to commend all of the people on both sides of me here at the head table for all of the hard work that has gone in to make this policy a reality. In particular, my Assistant Chief Officer, Mr. Joel Francis, has taken this as a labor of love. He's a very thorough individual, and he's put a lot of effort into making this a reality. I want to publicly thank him and the director and my chief officer, and of course our legal support for making this day possible. And we're very proud of what we've achieved. It is not a static document, it's a dynamic document. There will be things that will change as we move along, but I pray and hope that it will set the stage and send a message loud and clear that abuse of our young people is not tolerated. Zero tolerance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And even as he thanked those at the head table, I'd like to acknowledge the other members of the committee. As he said, it was made up of myself and the director, Mrs. Robinson, and Ms. Claire Allen of the Attorney General's Office. We also had invaluable help from Ms. Lucille Seymour of the Cayman Islands Netball Association, and of course the former acting director of the department, Mrs. Mendoza. I would now like to turn it to the director of the DCFS current, Mrs. Robinson, for her remarks.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge, in addition to our Honorable Minister or Chief Officer, you, the press, our young people who have joined us, and I understand that you are also sports enthusiasts. So thank you for joining us, because this policy is about you. The child abuse prevention policy is mandatory for all individuals involved in sports under the jurisdiction of National Sporting Authority at every level, whether working in a voluntary or a professional capacity. It is therefore relevant to athletes, parents, officials, coaches, volunteers, administrators, sporting clubs, organizations, as well as all support staff. The policy recognizes that the welfare and interests of children is paramount in all circumstances, and establishes that adults with a responsibility for children have a mutual and legal duty for ensuring their protection and care. This policy provides information that will enable all sports officials to be guided in 4 key domains. 1, how to recognize abuse and neglect. 2, how to respond to disclosures of abuse. 3, how to report and make referrals if there are concerns of abuse. And 4, how to record the incident. The policy also provides that reasonable steps must be taken to ensure that unsuitable people are prevented from working in sports with young people. Consequently, the policy recommends an approach to the safe recruitment of staff and volunteers for positions involving direct contact with children. The screening to keep children in a safe environment involves the following measures. 1, completion of a self-disclosure form by the applicant. 2, vetting of the applicant through interviews and references. 3, an enhanced disclosure and criminal records check. And 4, training to be provided by the Department of Children and Family Services on safeguarding responsibilities, as well as procedures for reporting concerns and suspicions of abuse and neglect. This Ministry of Community Affairs, Youth and Sports, and the Department of Children and Family Services, we have taken active steps to provide this framework to safeguard and protect the welfare of all children, especially young persons who are involved in sports. In doing so, we're guided by the principal view that not only is it a child's right to participate, learn, and enjoy sports in a safe environment, but it is also our obligation to assist in creating safe and positive sporting environments. Hence, our ministry and the Department for Children and Family Affairs, Family Services are committed to working in partnership with national sports authorities to embed athlete protection measures, provide awareness training, and promote best practice in keeping children safe. With teamwork and continuous engagement with the leadership of your individual and national sporting organizations, we are confident that we can ensure that sports remain a safe avenue through which our children's self-esteem, enjoyment, and sense of achievement can be realized. We thank you today for accepting your duty of care in safeguarding the children and young people of the Cayman Islands. In closing, I would like to reiterate, it's really a personal commitment and responsibility that safeguarding children entails. Any one of us may be the only defense a child has. If you don't report your concerns, who will? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Robinson. We'll move now to questions from the media or anyone present. And Mrs. Jones has a microphone just over there. You could just raise your hands, and she'll bring the microphone to you, and you can ask your questions into the microphone so that it's properly recorded. if you would identify yourself also as you ask the question, it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Wendy from Cayman News Service. I've been privileged enough to get the first ones. They're very short, actually. I would just like to ask the Minister, I see that you've got 4 sports associations named on the list as signing on. Does that mean to say that the others have not yet signed, in particular the football associations, especially as we've actually had convicted abusers from sports coaches that were in football? And also the Athletics Association isn't there, and we know that there's currently a major investigation going on into abuse there. So I'd like to know what the situation is overall with the associations that are signing on, and why those in particular are not here, because they would be the ones of concern, of course. Also, can the Minister tell us, does he really believe from his own experiences that there's going to be no historic cases of sexual abuse coming up in Cayman, especially as if we've never had any criminal records checks or reporting channels in the past, and we have now? Do you believe that it was happy days and no one was getting abused when you were a kid, or it's only just started now? So I'd just like those 2 questions answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy. I'll take the second question first, and I'll ask Joel to field the first question. In relation to when I was growing up, as I mentioned, Cayman, I guess, was, in all fairness, I'm 55, so 40 years ago, we did have a different Cayman Islands, and I cannot sit here and say there were no cases of abuse. But what I do know, it was not by any means widespread. We felt very safe in our small communities where everyone knew everyone. And at that point in time, we had, a very, very close-knit community. So whatever took place then, I can't say that nothing took place, but I think that we have a different Cayman Islands now. We've grown tremendously in population. We have foreign influences, and not to say that we don't have this one happen with locals. I don't get the wrong impression, but we do bring in coaches all the time. We bring in people to deal with athletes, and we have to ensure that we know who we are bringing in. That's what this is all about, that we do our best, and this will not stop incidents from happening. What it will do is, if there's an incident, it will be hopefully reported through the child protection officer, through the right channels, and the child will be protected. So we're not sitting here today saying that this is going to stamp out abuse. It's here to prevent and to mitigate. And I will now let Joel deal with the question on the other associations.
Thank you, Minister. You asked specifically about the Football Association. We do not, it's a mandatory policy, and so all sports associations will be required to sign on. No sports association has yet signed on. Today is the start of that process. I don't think we can take the numbers of associations who are present here now as an indication of a lack of support. In fact, when we presented the draft policy, we had excellent turnout and we had good feedback from the sports associations. And so we expect that we will get cooperation. We have been in touch with the associations since that last meeting as we were doing the tweaking, and we have had communication from them because, of course, in the interim, they've had to identify a child protection officer for the association, and we've had communication from most of the associations in terms of lists of volunteers, so we can develop the training that is going to be required and carried out by the DCFS.
Mr. Francis, if I could follow up to that, Ben Mead from Cayman Sports Buzz. So I understand 3-month window to get everybody signed on. What happens? What penalties are there? And Mr. Osborne, maybe you could point out whether there are funding implications. What happens if this firm 3-month deadline is not hit?
Thanks, Ben. A good question. We have not specified what the sanctions would be, but you can believe me, there would be sanctions. And we reserve the right to take action against any association that decides they do not want to be a part of this. We have associations that we fund, as you rightly said, and we also have the right to name and shame. This will not be something that will be taken lightly. So there are no specified sanctions, but action would be taken.
Why are there no specified sanctions?
I don't know.
I'll
leave that to these
we
guys.
expect full cooperation, Ben.
Yeah.
And
I don't see anyone.
and we do have the right, as you heard the minister say, to refuse funding. Now, most associations would have had a purchase agreement already signed with the government already, and this requirement would not have been a part of it since it's now being developed. But really, we do not expect that we would have any issue with any of the associations. At the end of the day, I think the executives of all the associations do believe in the benefit of sport, and so by not signing on to this policy, it can cause you not to be able to impart the full benefit of sport to youngsters, and I really don't see that it'd be an issue. But as you heard the minister say, he reserves the right to withhold any funding for any organization that does not sign on or does not comply with the requirements of the policy.
I also noticed that there's provision for the clubs that fall under the national associations to comply. To be frank, some of these associations have trouble getting the member clubs to comply with their set rules that they have in place. How firm are you going to be with the national associations if X number of clubs that fall under their remit just refuse to get their act together and be organized enough to have this implemented?
You want to answer?
I think we do have a law in terms of the children's law where it's mandatory reporting. So we need to take the leaning with these associations that it is a mandatory reporting under the children's law, which has been in effect from 2012. And so we need to be able to take that leaning. I don't think any association that are working with children really do not want to be in compliance with what the children's law say in terms of automatic reporting. So they'll be breaking the law when they don't automatically report. And then secondly, in terms of funding, we can, obviously, in the criteria talks about being vetted by the ministry and the Department of Sport. So if this is a policy of the ministry, which is in effect, we can, with the funding, hold it back because they are breaking the law. So we do not want to encourage our associations to break a law that falls under our ministry, which is community affairs. So I don't think that we would be encouraging that if they don't comply.
My name is Kayla Young. I'm with the Cayman Compass. And I was wondering, what of non-sports activities, such as scouting or arts programs, wouldn't it be logical to extend these same requirements to those types of programs?
Absolutely. It is the intention, and we've already had discussion with the Youth Services Unit, which is our sort of programming arm, and we will be moving to implement this for the youth groups that fall under our remit in short order.
Hi, good afternoon. Jordan Armanies from Cayman 27. You know, the people that we're dealing with, obviously deviants, pedophiles, manipulative people, what procedures are in place to police the officers, police the police that are put in place if in fact they become the people that you're targeting and they're, again, put in a position of power to manipulate their way into a advantageous situation? What has been put in place by the government to keep an eye on the people that are being put in place?
You're talking about the child protection officers?
Yes, so in the instance that they are the manipulators, the deviants, pedophiles, whoever you're targeting with this, what procedures from the government is being put in place to monitor and police the people that we are put into trust? Because essentially people are abusing positions of trust, and that is why they're manipulative people by nature. So what procedures have been put into that in terms of thought process? Or
So the policy deals with several parts, as you heard the director say, and apart from the reporting process that it establishes, it also has a section on due diligence for persons who, officials, child protection officers, club protection officers, etc. And they're quite strong, but so that will address, I think, part of the concern that you have once the background check, the references, the police checks, the checks with the DCFS database, etc., done, that will have an effect. But I believe secondary to that is also the fact that DCFS is going to be carrying out all of this training. So your presidents are going to be trained, your technical directors are going to be trained, the child protection officers, the club protection officers, and the officials and volunteers within the organization. And so I think there's going to be a heightened sense of vigilance on the part of anybody involved with a sport, and we've produced a number of brochures that we'll be sharing. So parents will have them in their hands. Athletes will have them. We're also calling for associations to prominently display certain information in the environments where the clubs operate, identifying the club protection officer, the NSA protection officer, etc. So I think overall we will be able to alleviate some of the concerns that you've raised, and really and truly, as much due diligence as you might do, if there's not vigilance, all of the due diligence you have really are not going to be as effective as they can be. And I don't know if anybody else on the head table would like to add any more.
I'd just like to add that on the brochure, as Joel said, the last item on the opening page, the third page of the bifold, it says that the parents and athletes can report suspicions too. So that, again, that is all about vigilance, and regardless who it is that's carrying out such a heinous act can be reported.
Lucille Seymour from Cayman Islands Netball Association, and in support of this policy. The question was regarding the commercial people in sports who take out a trade and business license to do sports, but yet at the same time the onus is on the association. Would the minister say whether or not these persons should first go through the pertinent association prior to getting a trade and business license?
Thank you, Ms. Lucille. That's a good question, and I guess it is one that we will have to turn some focus to. It would be best if any sport that falls on an association goes through that association, and that is our safeguard, that is our check. So I certainly would support that move. To have you out there as a renegade body, as it were, doesn't suit the purposes that we're trying to achieve here.
I just wanted to follow up on the historic issues, because obviously so many other countries, especially in the UK, they're dealing with enormous revelations. Given that we're now going to have much more supportive channels, much more, do you anticipate and have you got structures in place to deal with any reports that people say this happened to me 30 years ago?
I will certainly turn that over. Don't know if that one was thought of.
I cannot adequately answer the 30 year. I don't know about the legal implications of whether or not, if it happens 30 years ago, whether not reporting it until now could really cause somebody to be prosecuted. That a legal question that I can. I don't know, Claire, do you have a thought on that?
Well, in the first instance, obviously the department could look into any allegations of abuse irrespective of the time frame. There may be some limitations in the law around actions that can be taken, though, depending upon how long ago certain things may have happened. But certainly even historic abuse can be brought to the attention of the department, and they can look at what may be able to be done in that regard.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just to add that even though it may not be possible to do a criminal processing of that report at that point, if someone says that they've been abused, there is still a responsibility on the department to ensure that they're referred for the services to address the issues that surround the pain of that experience. So services are available in the event that someone makes a report.
Well, I too would like to join in the chorus of thank yous once again to the media, as well as to the sporting associations and those interested parties here. Director of Sports came in a bit late, but he's here with us, and recognize him. Ms. Lucille, who's a former parliamentarian and netball queen of Cayman, some 40 years as president, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Lucille. It's almost 40 years. Feels like it. But, to have someone like her, you know, who's been around sports all her life and been in government, in the civil service as well as a parliamentarian, to have someone like her endorse this and to lend her support and all the help that she's given. Just want to thank you all very much. The four of you who are signing up today as the first ones, certainly kudos to you. And we look forward to all of the member associations and bodies getting on board. I think this is too important for anyone to play with it. I think it's too important for anyone to say they don't want to be a part of it. And they run the risk of being, you know, embarrassed if they don't. So I think that's why we stayed away from very strict sanctions, because it is in your interest and the kids that you look after, it's in their interest for you to be a part of this very important initiative. As I said, it's regrettable that we have to have such a policy, in my opinion, but it's the reality of the world that we live in. And we have not been afraid to tackle this and to bring it forward. And once again, thank you all who have worked really, really hard at formulating this, and I've just been the minister at the time. So thank you, and thank you all for attending once again.
Thank you.